Oh well. Hey, what it do, man? Y'all know what it is. I am that boy Box. This is Roughhouse Boxing TV. And yeah, gotta send a big salute. Shout out to the whole LDBC, Lions Den Boxing community. You know, hey, smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Share this to your social media platforms. You know the routine, man. Hey, check this out. Tell a friend about what's going down here at the house. Let them peek their head in the door, see if they like what we putting down. If so, then be a repeat visitor, man. But that's what it is, man. Appreciate y'all for stopping by the house and chopping it up with us, man. Yeah, come on, have a seat. Hey, wipe your feet, and close the door behind you. That's what's up, man. But today the flag is at half mast for HBO boxing. And I know a lot of people have already reported on this today, or given their 2 cents and their input, opinions, whatnot on it. But I'm gonna go ahead right now and do the same. And this was a widely publicized incident. I saw publications and reports on this in the New York Times, the LA Times, Sports Illustrated, USA Today, ESPN.com. The list goes on and on. It was a bunch of people, reporting on this. So, and I'm going to take my particular source of information from the New York Times. This was an article put out by Wallace Matthews and came out today. And the name of the article says HBO says it is leaving the boxing business. Got a few points here highlighted, so y'all bear with me as I go through this. But starts out by saying after 45 years and more than 1,000 fights, HBO is throwing in the towel on professional boxing. So, we saw this coming for some time now. And not only us, but a lot of people saw this coming. The lack of programming, the lack of big fights, the loss of big fighters. They had drawing power and star power from Floyd Mayweather to Andre Ward. Although he retired, he was not happy with his situation at HBO as a fighter. And the contracts expiring on Canelo and Triple G. The defeats of some of their highly touted superstars like Kovalev, Triple G, Chocolatito, amongst others. But it is what it is. C'est la vie. But here we go. Peter Nelson, who's the 37-year-old executive vice president of HBO Sports, made the announcement that the new network was dropping boxing Thursday morning in a meeting with the HBO production staff, a group that includes the play-by-play announcer Jim Lampley, the analyst Max Kellerman, the ringside scorer Harold Letterman, and the former boxing champions Andre Ward and Roy Jones Jr., who worked for HBO as freelance commentators. Of the announcing staff, only Lampley is expected to remain with HBO. This is not a subjective decision, Nelson said in a recent interview. Our audience research informs us that boxing is no longer a determinant factor for subscribing to HBO. Found that kind of surprising. But, first let's talk a little bit about the announcing staff. Jim Lampley. It's been complaints for years about the biased and one-sided commentating and analysis during fights. Everything seemed in favor of HBO's guy, whoever that guy was for that particular fight, whether he was doing good, or whether he was doing piss poor in a fight. The fight always seemed to be, or predominantly seemed to be, slanted in their favor as far as the commentary and the analysis was concerned. So Jim Lampley, he gets a pass. He's going to stay around. He's got shows like the Fight Game, which I guess that's going to go away because there'll be no more fights uh, in 2019. You know, but then you got Max Kellerman, who he has a parachute because he has a business with ESPN amongst other platforms. So he lands on a bed of cotton balls and Q-tips. It's gonna be a soft landing for him. Harold Letterman, I don't know. That's the only thing he had going that I knew of, that I was aware of. Maybe he has other things going on that he can fall back onto. If he does, y'all let me know in the comments section. But there's big question marks about what's going to happen to him. I think he's just going to fade to black, and he's going to ride off into the sunset. He's old enough. And then you had Andre Ward, who currently has a signed a deal to commentate for ESPN on their fights. So he saw the writing on the wall, and he made a plan B and an exit strategy, and he got out of Dodge. Roy Jones Jr., as we know, Roy Jones Jr. has RJJ Promotions, where he trains and promotes up and coming fighters and talents. So maybe he will stick to just the promotion and the training of fighters. Who knows? So everybody, with the exception of Harold Letterman, seems to have some type of out or exit strategy. But we'll see. And I gotta say this about Max Kellerman, man. When Max Kellerman first started up at HBO, I was very high on Max Kellerman. He was the fresh new face. Had a little bit of swag to him. That was different than the status quo that was at HBO. He seemed to call fights more down the line, black and white. As it was really happening, opposed to what HBO wanted the narrative to be. But it seemed like the more he became entrenched into HBO's narrative, the more he became a company man, and the more he started siding towards Jim Lampley and that mode of commentating and calling fights. And the other thing I want to say was the statement that Peter Nelson made, where he said that our audience research informs us that boxing is no longer a determinant factor for subscribing to HBO. Now, one thing that and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, so I guess I'll wait on that. But it's as bad as HBO boxing has gotten. It's kind of hard to picture the boxing landscape without HBO. That's just the fact of the matter. Everybody that's here, HBO boxing started in 1973 when George Foreman knocked out Joe Frazier. That was the first the first HBO boxing telecast ever. So, that's been 45 years ago. And they've been a mainstay and a staple in the boxing game. At one time, they were the name in boxing productions and boxing fights being broadcast on TV. But that changed. And that changed, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but that all changed when Floyd Mayweather left. And he started vocally and outwardly expressing his displeasure with HBO and his treatment at HBO, But yeah, that's what it is. Now, in the article, it goes on to talk about other boxing platforms and providers, and they mention ESPN. They talk about the 7-year deal that Top Rank just signed with ESPN, and the 54 fight showcase that they got coming in the near future. They talk about the ESPN Plus app, and they even talk about DAZN in here and how DAZN was the newest, player in the boxing game, and how the uh, the broadcasting of boxing and boxing matches in the future will move more towards streaming. You got ESPN Plus, like we mentioned, DAZN, but you also got the Showtime app, which streams boxing matches for anybody that's not in front of their television and uh, wants to watch boxing or whatever programming that Showtime has to offer. Um, yeah. So it also talks about the PBC and how it just inked new deals with Fox Sports uh, and Showtime. So, basically what it was saying is that the room just got too crowded for HBO, but in my opinion, it was HBO's mismanagement, mishandling, mispromotion or lack of promotion for the dominant fighters and their quest to push the European fighters. And I mean, I'm not gonna sit up here and bash European fighters because there are good fighters that come out of Eastern European countries, but it was super hard for the Kovalevs, the the Lomachenkos, the anything with an Ev or check on the end to break into the American market and become endeared to the American boxing public. And it just was what it was. It never Kovalev and Triple G, while they were pretty big names in boxing to the American public, they weren't that name that you just had to check for. They weren't that star and that entity that people couldn't wait to see in the ring. You know, so it is what it is. Let's see. It also says, other than the biggest fights, boxing has recently struggled to penetrate the mainstream sports discussion. There was a time back in the early 20th century where boxing was second only to baseball. You know, baseball was America's pastime, and then you had boxing, and people gathered around their black and white televisions and their radios every time a fight came on, because normally when those fights came on, it was a major fight, it was a major event, and somewhere down the road, boxing lost its luster, and the emphasis on big fights became smaller, and it was quantity over quality. They wanted to force feed people, here's a fight, here's a fight, here's a fight, and it would be two tomato cans fighting, and you'd have to wait and wait and wait for the big, competitive, quality boxing match. So, that's just what it was. Nelson also said there's plenty of boxing out there, but what we have not seen is a lot of signature destination boxing, which kind of backs up the point I just made. Then the article goes on to talk about some of the big matches that HBO broadcast and televised. It talks about 20-year-old Mike Tyson becoming the youngest heavyweight champion when he beat and knocked out Trevor Berbick in '86. Talks about the fight between Mildred Taylor and Julio Cesar Chavez that was halted with 1 second left to go in the fight. Uh, other memorable other memorable fights were the triangle fights between Hagler Leonard, Hagler Hearns, Leonard and Hearns, and it says such bouts sometimes attracted as much as one third of HBO's domestic subscriber base, which was roughly 15 million people at the time. Now that base is roughly 40 million, but according to Nielsen, HBO boxing telecasts in 2018 averaged about 820,000 views, about 2% of its total audience. And I think that drastic, drop in the bottom falling out of its ratings is due to the lackluster product that HBO was putting out. HBO, truth be told, man, HBO could have gone the way of Showtime if they would have handled the fighters and the promotion properly. They could be in the same high seat the high chair that Al Heyman, the PBC, and Showtime are in right now. They could at least be doing what ESPN is doing, at least. But they chose Game of Thrones. Let's see. It says that decline in viewership apparently for the past several years was the final straw for Nelson. Boxing was no longer a profitable investment for HBO. Last April, Andre the Giant, the Andre the Giant documentary, for example, drew about 7 million viewers at a much lower cost than the 1.5 to $3 million generally required to produce a boxing match. Because of our association with boxing, people forget that we're not a sports network, Nelson said. We're a storytelling platform. Meaning, we are not in the business of putting on sporting events. We are in the business of movies, dramas, sitcoms, documentaries, things of that nature. HBO's only associate. Oh, wait. Let me back up. Some episodes of Game of Thrones garners audiences in tens of millions, and HBO Sports has high expectations for The Shop, a recently launched talk show set in a barbershop produced by and starring LeBron James. LeBron getting that producer credit and producer money with HBO. So, in a nutshell, instead of actual sporting events, HBO's sports department is going to be banking on things like Hard Knocks, which are docudramas, um, The Shop, which is a talk show. What else? Uh, documentaries like Serena. You know, so yeah, that's what that is. HBO's only association with boxing in 2019 will be a two-part documentary on Muhammad Ali, which LeBron James, will be serving as the executive producer. So there we go. And let me see what else. But at the end of the article, it says Nelson left the door open for a possible return to the ring one day after the network's final scheduled bout next month. That's going to be between Danny Jacobs and Sergey Derevyanchenko. Nelson goes on to say, "I'm still a fan of boxing. If there is a destination event, meaning a big money fight, absolutely, we're in that conversation." So, maybe boxing won't be a regular programming event for HBO. Maybe it'll just be, sporadic here and there, if they can ever capture a big fight, which, with their budget being downsized considerably and the piece of the pie for boxing going to programs such as Game of Thrones and Insecure and The Shop and things of that nature, it's going to be hard for me to visualize boxing coming back in a meaningful way with HBO. So, um, in conclusion, HBO has gone off to the upper room, and the crypt keeper is sitting there waiting on him, with arms stretched wide open, with a sickle in one hand and a bony hand in the other, saying, "Come on to the upper room." So the flag is flying at half mast for HBO boxing. Goodbye, good riddance, and to quote a very scholarly, wise, and endearing figure in the American culture, Erica Badu. Maybe we'll see you next lifetime. And as always, hey, thank y'all for stopping by the house. You know what I'm saying? Coming in and chopping it up with me. And if you didn't know, I am that boy Box. This is Roughhouse Boxing TV. And smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. I'm trying to think. Share this to your social media platforms, your Facebook, your Twitters, your Snapchats, your Instagrams, all that stuff, man. Just share it and give somebody else a chance to check it out, and then maybe they'll want to come to the house, stick their head in the door, peep around, see what's going on. They come in and kick it with us. You know what I'm saying? Hey, gotta send a special shout out again to the big homie World Breaker Fighting. Hey, we on a push to get that brother up over 1,000, putting out that excellent content, knowledgeable, consistent, moving content. You know what I'm saying? Thought provoking is a word I used earlier because he's always got something that he wants to put on your mind and make you think about, man. So, hey, shout out and salutes to the big homie World Breaker Fighting. Hey, we love what you're doing over there, man. Keep doing it, and we behind you 100%, bro. We riding with you. We riding for you, man. Can't wait to see you get to 1K. But, yeah, thank y'all for coming by the house, chopping it up and politicking with me, man. Chilling out for a little bit. And big shout out and salute to the whole LDBC Lions Den Box community. And I got that same cameraman again. Man, that's a shame. But I'm too far into the video to start over now. So with that, I'm trying to think, is there anything else? Anything else? Anything? No. Anything else? Anything else? No. Nothing. No. No. Hey, that's it. So y'all go ahead and get on out the house now. Yeah.